Chapter 6: The Mark of the Hunt. The nebula did not drift. It breathed. Veins of blue-white lightning pulsed through its mass like the synapses of a slumbering god, each flare illuminating the skeletal silhouette of a dying star caught in slow collapse. Clouds folded inward upon themselves, then blossomed outward again, an endless inhalation and exhalation that made space feel less like a void and more like a living lung. Within that vast respiration, a single craft moved, not against the current, but with it. Junta did not pilot so much as listen. His vessel, etched with the scars of 100 hunts, glided along unseen currents, its cloaking field bending light into silence. He stood within the dim chamber of his ship, unmoving, yet profoundly awake. The stars beyond the viewport refracted across his mask, twin reflections trembling like distant fire. Once, the force had felt like pressure, like standing beneath a storm that threatened to break. Now, it felt like rhythm. He no longer searched for disturbances. He no longer imposed his will upon its current. The hunt had changed, or perhaps he had finally remembered what it was. The hunt is not the strike. The hunt is the listening before the strike. His breathing slowed until it matched the cadence of the nebula's pulse. There was no dissonance, no fracture. Even the memory of the one he had slain, the dark enforcer clad in black armor, a being of rage and iron, had settled into stillness. Not victory. Integration. Ahead, the derelict vessel emerged from the storm. It did not resemble any ship forged by known hands. Its geometry flowed rather than held, curved surfaces merging into elongated spines that arched like ribs around an invisible core. Sections of the hull pulsed faintly, as though something beneath it continued to circulate fluid through ancient veins. Light flickered in irregular patterns, neither electrical nor entirely organic. A relic of those who had shaped worlds. A tomb that had forgotten how to remain dead. Junta's mandibles flexed slightly beneath his mask as his senses traced its contours. He did not feel danger. He felt inevitability. The prey reveals the hunter within. He guided his craft toward an opening that had not been cut, but grown. On the opposite side of the vessel, a different ship arrived with none of that reverence. Its engines burned harsh and angular, slicing through the nebula rather than yielding to it. Imperial design, precise, efficient, indifferent to the cosmic breath around it. The vessel latched onto the derelict hull with mechanical certainty, clamps biting into ancient alloy. Inside, the Sith Inquisitor stood within the docking chamber, his black armor gleaming under sterile light. "Report," came the voice through his comm. Cold, measured, familiar. The Inquisitor knelt instinctively, though the Emperor was not physically present. "My lord, I have reached the coordinates. The vessel matches the description. It is alive." A pause. Then, softer. "Everything that lives may be shaped." The Inquisitor's gloved hand tightened around the hilt of his weapon. "I will locate the creature that slew Lord Vader." "You will do more than that," the Emperor replied. "You will bring me what this place offers." Power unclaimed is power wasted. The transmission ended, but its echo lingered. The Inquisitor rose. There was no fear in him. Only purpose sharpened into a blade. He stepped into the ship. The door did not open. It unfolded. Inside, the air tasted of metal and something older. Not decay. Preparation. Junta moved through the corridors like a shadow that had learned patience. His cloak bent light into absence, but even without it, he would have been difficult to perceive. The ship's interior resisted simple geometry. Walls curved into ceilings without seam, surfaces breathing with faint expansions that mimicked the slow contraction of muscle. Glyphs flickered along the walls, holographic symbols that shimmered between language and mathematics. They did not communicate. They remembered. He paused before one such panel, tilting his head as its symbols rearranged in response to his presence. The light reflected across his mask in fractured patterns. Not all knowledge is meant to be read. Some must be hunted. A distant sound reached him. Not mechanical. Not entirely biological. A chittering beneath the threshold of hearing. Junta did not advance. He listened. The Inquisitor moved with less patience, though no less precision. His boots struck the floor with deliberate force, each step a declaration of control. He activated a scanning device, its red beam sweeping across the organic architecture. Unknown compounds, the device reported. High mutagenic potential. He ignored the warning. Power often wore the mask of danger. He entered a chamber vast enough to swallow his presence. Rows of urn-like structures lined the space, each one filled with a dark, viscous liquid that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The air grew heavier here, charged with an unseen tension that pressed against his senses. The force stirred. But not in a way he understood. He approached one of the urns, placing his hand against its surface. It pulsed. A tremor moved through the chamber. Behind him, something opened. The Inquisitor turned, igniting his blade in a flash of crimson. An egg. It had been dormant, indistinguishable from the surrounding structures until it was not. Its surface peeled back in slow, deliberate segments, revealing a wet interior that shimmered with unnatural life. The Inquisitor raised his weapon. He hesitated. Not from fear. From curiosity. The force twisted around the opening, bending inward as though drawn by gravity. Something launched. The impact drove him to the ground. Claws wrapped around his skull, a tail coiling around his throat with surgical precision. The facehugger latched onto him, its form sealing with horrific intimacy. He roared, the sound echoing against the chamber's curved walls. His blade slashed upward, but it struck nothing of consequence. The creature held. The urn beside him shattered. Black fluid spilled across his armor, seeping through seams, finding pathways into his flesh. The force ignited within him, not as flame, but as infection. Visions fractured. Creation and corruption became indistinguishable. He saw stars being born from ruin. He saw life reshaped by unseen hands. He saw himself. Not as he was, but as something that would endure. His scream became silence. The Mandalorians did not announce their arrival. Their ships descended through the nebula like falling blades, precise and unyielding. They docked in formation, each movement calculated to minimize exposure, maximize control. Ravo's car was the first to step onto the derelict vessel. His armor bore the scars of countless battles, each mark preserved rather than repaired. His visor reflected the ship's shifting light, unreadable, yet intensely present. Behind him, his warriors spread out in disciplined formation. No wasted motion. No unnecessary speech. This place breathes, one of them muttered. Ravos inclined his head slightly. Then we cut carefully. A flicker. A distortion in the air. Junta revealed himself. No weapon raised. No threat implied. Recognition passed between them like an unspoken language. Hunter to hunter. Ravos studied him for a moment. Then, simply. You move with it. Junta inclined his head. You do not break it. A pause. Agreement. Not alliance. Alignment. To hunt is not to disturb, Ravos said quietly. Junta's voice, filtered through his mask, carried the weight of something older. To hunt is to align. The words settled between them like a contract etched in silence. They moved together without further discussion. The ship began to change. It started subtly. A wall that had once been smooth developed ridges. A corridor narrowed, not by collapse, but by growth. The black fluid spread through unseen channels, reshaping the vessel from within. Surfaces hardened into resin-like structures, forming patterns that mirrored biological hives. And beneath it all, a will. The Inquisitor awoke. He did not rise immediately. He listened. The force no longer flowed around him. It obeyed him. Or something within him. His breath came slow, measured, controlled. Yet each inhale carried a faint, alien undertone. He stood. His movements were precise, yet altered, too fluid, too efficient. His armor had fused in places, blackened by the substance that had claimed him. His presence in the force had shifted into something cold and expansive. He extended his hand. From the shadows, shapes emerged. Xenomorphs. Not as wild creatures. As instruments. They gathered before him, their forms glistening in the dim light, their movements synchronized. He did not command them with words. He did not need to. The hunt had changed. And so had he. The corridors became a battlefield of shadows and flame. Mandalorians advanced in layered formation, their movements precise, their coordination absolute. Flamethrowers ignited in controlled bursts, carving paths through encroaching resin. Blaster fire echoed, measured and efficient. Junta moved between them like a ghost given purpose. His cloak flickered in and out of visibility as he tracked the shifting patterns of the hive. His senses mapped movement, but his true guidance came from the rhythm beneath it all. The xenomorphs adapted. They did not charge blindly. They learned. They flanked. They withdrew and returned from unexpected angles. One Mandalorian fell behind as a creature lunged from above. Junta was already there. The strike was instantaneous. The creature fell before it understood it had been seen. The hunter is revealed by the prey. They pressed deeper. Toward the source. The queen awaited. Massive. Rooted within the heart of the transformed chamber, her form extended into the very structure of the ship. Tubes and tendrils connected her to the walls, feeding, growing, sustaining. She was not merely a creature. She was an axis. The Mandalorians did not hesitate. They formed a perimeter, weapons calibrated, movements synchronized. Junta's data streamed into their systems, guiding positioning, predicting movement. Ravos gave a single command. They moved. The assault was surgical. Each strike placed with intent. Each retreat calculated. The queen lashed out, her movements devastating, but the formation held. One warrior broke from the line, not in error, but in precision. He moved exactly where Junta's data indicated. Exactly when the rhythm allowed. His weapon discharged at the precise moment the queen's defenses faltered. The strike landed. A rupture. A collapse. The chamber trembled as the queen's form convulsed, then stilled. Silence followed. Not empty. Earned. Junta approached the warrior. The Mandalorian stood still, his armor scorched, his breathing steady. Ravos watched. Junta knelt. From his gauntlet, a blade extended, not crude, but ceremonial. He pressed it against the warrior's Beskar armor. The metal resisted. Then yielded. A symbol emerged. Ancient. Deliberate. Glowing faintly as though infused with something beyond heat. Junta's voice was quiet. You hunted within the rhythm. You did not disturb, it is you who balanced it. Ravos stepped forward. Then the hunt remembers both our blood. No further words were needed. Something had been forged. The final confrontation did not erupt. It unfolded. Junta found the Inquisitor at the core of the ship. The hybrid stood amidst a chamber that pulsed with life not meant to exist. Their gazes met. No introduction. No declaration. The force surged. Metal twisted as invisible pressure bent the environment around them. The hybrid lashed out, power radiating in waves that distorted space itself. Junta did not resist. He moved. Not against the force. Within it. Each motion aligned with its flow, each step placed where resistance would not exist. The hybrid struck harder, faster, pushing, forcing, attempting to overwhelm. Junta stilled. Complete. Absolute. The force passed through him like wind through open space. The hybrid faltered. For the first time. Disruption. Junta moved. One precise strike. Not to destroy. To end the imbalance. The hybrid collapsed. Alive. But undone. Escape was immediate. The ship could no longer sustain itself. Its structure began to collapse inward as the nebula reclaimed it. Mandalorian ships launched in coordinated ascent. Junta's vessel followed. Behind them, the derelict imploded in silence. But not everything was lost. Imperial craft emerged from the storm. They did not engage. They collected. A single pod was retrieved. Inside. The hybrid. Still breathing. Still connected. Far away, in a chamber of shadow and design, the Emperor regarded the form before him. His smile was small. Precise. From one death, he murmured, another servant is born. The force coiled around the hybrid. Not rejecting. Accepting. The hunt feeds the throne. Junta remained in the nebula. Alone. Or not entirely. She appeared as a shimmer at the edge of perception. Hela. Not flesh. Not illusion. A presence shaped like inevitability. You caught death, she said softly, circling him. Yet she cannot claim you. Junta did not turn. The hunt transforms all who join it. She paused. Studying him. Even you. A moment. Yes. Her form flickered, something like curiosity passing through her. Then you are nearing him. Junta's gaze lifted toward the distant currents. The one between. The one who is not divided, she said. And not whole, Junta replied. She smiled faintly. Then she was gone. The nebula continued its endless breath. Junta's ship ascended, its form dissolving into the currents of light and shadow. Within, he stood once more in stillness. The hunt had not ended. It had deepened. The hunt is not pursuit. It is remembrance. The stars reflected across his mask. Twin flames. Life. Death. Balanced. I am not the disturbance, he whispered. I am the song.